Hi everyone, for this video we are going to talk about Xingqiu. So the Klee banner has just ended and maybe you're watching this video because you got Xingqiu and you're curious how to build him as a main DPS. Just a disclaimer though that this video will be focusing on Xingqiu as a main DPS rather than building him as a support. However, throughout the video I might throw in some tips on how to build him as a support as well. But then again, take note that the weapon, team, and artifact suggestions are all for DPS Xingqiu. If you haven't watched my previous videos about how I use Xingqiu, please do visit my channel. Currently, I have uploaded a video showcasing him as a main DPS in Abyss and another video of Xingqiu but as a support and Venti as the DPS. I'm planning to upload Genshin related videos regularly, so I will really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell below. Okay, here's a quick showcase of Xingqiu bursting through the animal hypostasis. Usually I use Xiangling to apply fire and Xingqiu to vaporize, but since this was the animal hypostasis, it will just be swirled and so proccing vaporize will be hard. I don't even know if vaporize is possible in this scenario, so I didn't have to wait for Guoba to apply fire damage before I used Xingqiu. My usual combination will be to use Chongyun's E, summon Guoba to apply Melt, and switch back to Xingqiu to vaporize. But then again, this is the animal cube, so these elements will just be swirled. In here you can see how Xingqiu's elemental burst is literally bursting down the animal cube. Take note that my Xingqiu was level 70 at the time of the recording and the elite boss was level 72, so I didn't have the level gap advantage here. Currently, my Xingqiu is level 80 with max constellations and leveled up talents. Let's now go to team building. This setup is very useful in Abyss since you need two teams, and when you're just starting out, well, in my personal experience, I only had Barbara as my healer. And so the problem was, what about my other team? So my solution there was to use the Black Sword. Later on, we will discuss more about the weapons. For now, all you need to know is that the Black Sword can heal the user when a crit lands. Take note, it will heal you when a crit lands. And so for this setup to be useful, you need a high crit chance. And I'm one of the unlucky ones. I don't have godly artifacts that have high crit chance as a substat. So I had to take advantage of the Cryo Resonance. In Cryo Resonance, crit rate is increased by 15%, but the downside is it only works for enemies affected by Cryo, so Chongyun and Kaya are the best ice characters in my opinion for this setup. And the reason for that is, well, in Chongyun's E, all sword attacks made by Xingqiu will be Cryo damage. Aside from that, Kaya builds an energy recharge and Kaya's burst ability can constantly apply Cryo damage. Aside from the crit rate from the Cryo Resonance, having two units of the same element in a team will make it faster for Cryo energy to refill. And that's a good thing for Kaya because Kaya's main utility comes from his elemental burst. Now, you can further utilize this by equipping the Exile set on both Kaya and Chongyun since they're both Cryo and you'll be getting more Cryo energy. The 4-set effect will be almost always happening in this case, and because of this, Xingqiu can quickly use his elemental burst again. By the way, Xiangling is there because I wanted to take advantage of Melt. As I've said, my technique is to use Chongyun first, then summon Guoba to apply Melt, then switch back to Xingqiu and proc Vaporize. Now, can you replace Xiangling with Fischl to proc Superconduct in this team setup? No, I don't really recommend that at all because Chongyun's E will make Xingqiu's basic attack deal cryo damage and Superconduct will decrease the enemy's physical resistance, not cryo damage resistant. If you want to use or utilize Superconduct, remove Chongyun from the team and replace with another ice character. What if you want to make a proper team with a healer but still utilizing the Black Sword? With this setup, you will have a powerful team that can reliably freeze the enemy and so in a way preventing damage. And if you do get damage, you still have your Black Sword with you and the proper healer this time, either Chi-Chi or Diona. Chi-Chi and Diona are both Cryo units. However, I still can't give a proper review on Diona right now because as you know, she will be coming later, at least in the Asia server. So again, some notes on team composition. Do not use Chongyun if you want to take advantage of Superconduct while having Xingqiu as your main DPS. In addition, Chi does not sustainably deal cryo damage to take advantage of the cryo resonance. You need either Chongyun's E or Kaya's Q to utilize this. You can run a different setup from mine, it really depends on your playstyle. Personally, I just really enjoy Xingqiu's and Chongyun's combo of constantly freezing enemies, and the Black Sword and Cryo Resonance just fits perfectly in this setup. If you have Constellation 2 Chongyun, I really recommend you using him with Xingqiu because Xingqiu's elemental skill does have a very long cooldown. Now for my weapons guide, I will not discuss 5-star weapons. Unfortunately, I have no experience with 5-star weapons, so I can't really give comments on how good they are. But just basing from their base stats, I think they're very powerful. If you have a 5-star weapon and happens to use it on Xingqiu, please do comment down below and let the community know. Okay, for 4-star weapons, for a main DPS Xingqiu, hands down the Black Sword is insane. It can heal the user upon landing a crit, and if that's still not enough, it increases damage dealt by normal and charged attacks by 20% at Refine level 1. All you need to do to have that increased damage is to do a normal or charged attack, which as a main DPS, you will be doing anyway. So if you happen to have the Black Sword or is planning to get the Battle Pass on 1.1 and you're planning to make Xingqiu as your main DPS, I really recommend the Black Sword. Together with my suggested cryo team, you can clear beast floors without a proper healer. Now, what if you don't have the Black Sword? My next suggestion will be the Flute, and the main reason for this is because the secondary stat of the Flute is attack. And attack is the best way to increase Xingqiu's damage overall. With attack, you'll be increasing his normal and charged damage, and more importantly, you'll also be increasing Xingqiu's elemental skill and elemental burst damage. Aside from that, the effect of the Flute is good for main DPS as well. Another weapon that I highly recommend is the Sacrificial Sword, and there are two reasons for this. First, the secondary stat is energy recharge, and if you don't have Constellation 6 Xingqiu, this will help Xingqiu to have his ultimate up almost all the time. More importantly, Xingqiu has a very long cooldown on his elemental skill, and with the Sacrificial Sword, you have a chance to use this twice in a row. Although again, I recommend using Guoba first and wait for it to apply fire damage before using his elemental skill. Favonius Sword can also be a good alternative if you do not have the Sacrificial Sword. If you're going to use this, I highly recommend to run a Cryo Resonance team to take advantage of the increased crit chance. Okay, what if you want to use craftable weapons? For craftable weapons for a main DPS Xingqiu, I recommend using the prototype Rancor instead of the Iron Sting. The reason for this is Elemental Mastery is hard to utilize with a DPS Xingqiu because of the long cooldown of his elemental skill. Although the Iron Sting will make your Vaporize even more powerful, I think as a main DPS, the prototype Rancor is just better. But if you really want to use Iron Sting, my recommendation would be to use Xingqiu with the Constellation 2 Chongyun to reduce the cooldown of Xingqiu's E ability. Prototype Rancor, on the other hand, is good for a Constellation 6 Xingqiu or when you have 2 Hydro units in a team, which I assume you have since Barbara is for free, and since you're watching this video, I'm assuming you have Xingqiu as well. 2 Hydro units means you'll be getting more Hydro Orbs, which means increasing the overall uptime of your rain swords as well. So for the overall ranking of weapons for a main DPS Xingqiu, I'd say that the Black Sword is superior for a main DPS Xingqiu, especially if you run it with a Cryo Resonance team. Flute will be my next option, then Sacrificial Sword, and Favonius Sword as a good alternative for the Sacrificial Sword. If you're wondering how I will rank the weapons for a support type Xingqiu, I'd say that the Sacrificial Sword is the best sword for a support type Xingqiu, followed by Favonius Sword for energy recharge, and then weapons that increases attack, because as I've said, attack can also increase Xingqiu's rain sword damage. For artifacts, well, artifacts are quite tricky because it really depends on your playstyle, but for a main DPS Xingqiu, here are my suggestions. If you like Xingqiu's normal attacks and elemental burst, I recommend equipping a 2-set Gladiator's Finale and a 2-set Noblesse Oblige. With this combination, his attack will increase by 18%, which affects his physical damage, his elemental skill, and elemental burst. Further increase the damage of his elemental burst, Noblesse Oblige provides an additional 20% damage. Now, if you don't have a lot of resin like I do and can't farm specific domains, the 4-set Gladiator's Finale is the best for you. Personally, I use this because I currently don't have the resources to farm Noblesse Oblige with god tier stats, and I just use what the elite bosses give me, honestly. Which I think is a safe investment because a lot of other main DPS do use Gladiator's Finale. So it's just a safer investment overall. One possible advantage of the 4-set Gladiator's Finale is that I'm not sure whether the 35% damage increase in normal attack applies when I use Chongyun's E-skill, because Chongyun's E-skill makes Xingqiu's attacks cryo damage, so I'm not sure about that. But if that's the case wherein it doesn't apply, an interesting artifact combination that I have in mind is utilizing Xingqiu as the DPS and Chongyun as a support. There is a leak that an artifact set increasing cryo damage may be available in the future. So currently, at 1.0, we don't have this, but I think this might be a good artifact set since Chongyun's E-skill will make Xingqiu's normal attacks deal 15% more damage. Couple this with the permafreeze Xingqiu Chongyun combo in a cryo resonance team increasing crit chance, I think this will be a good artifact set. Moving on to the main stats, it's pretty straightforward for a main DPS Xingqiu. You can go attack, 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 or attack, hydro damage, attack, or attack, attack, crit rate, slash damage, depending on what you're lacking. For secondary stats, personally, my priority first is crit rate percent because I'm using the black sword. Next will be attack percent or crit damage percent, and last would be energy recharge. However, if an artifact doesn't even have crit rate, attack, or crit damage, I personally wouldn't take the energy recharge as a secondary stat. As you've seen, artifacts, weapons, and team composition really depend on one another. My ultimate advice is to try out different playstyles because it really boils down to which one is more fun for you. I have Diluc and Keqing, both of which are regarded by the community as OP DPS units, and I do agree, they are very powerful DPS units, but I enjoy using Xingqiu more than Diluc or Keqing, and that's ultimately the reason why I use Xingqiu. He's very enjoyable to use and he's a flexible unit as well. You can pair him with a DPS Venti or any archer units and you'll have a great time. Again, this is a guide for a main DPS Xingqiu. The weapon, team composition, and artifacts will change if you will use him as a support unit, and in that case, it will depend on your main DPS. I hope this video helped, and if it did, please like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel.